What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the Red Bull RB13, which is arguably everybody's favorite Alpha GP vehicle. Let me know in the comments below, guys, which car you guys like the most and why, but I would probably say this is probably going to be everybody's favorite Alpha GP car. It was also the first car that I bought as well, so we all know that most of the vehicles got the same handling update as the RB14, which actually originated from the Expo R, which is probably everybody's most hated Alpha GP vehicle. Even some say this thing is also not an Alpha GP car, but moving back over to the RB13 here, guys, I think one of my favorite things about this car is how much fun this thing is to drive in first-person mode. I really do love the look of this thing, plus it's also going to be insanely good as well. I would say it's going to handle on par with like the RB14. Is it going to be the best Alpha GP car in the game? I guess that's going to be left to be desired, but I would say this thing is also going to be pretty dang close as well. So I did mention the RB14 Disruption Edition video that I was wondering why that like wishbone thing is on the top of the car. Again, guys, let me know in the comments below if that was added later on for like a safety feature. I have to admit though, these cars look so dang cool without them, but I can definitely see why it has it on there. Now, the RB13 has always been a fast Alpha GP vehicle. I do believe back in the day this car always did around 298 miles per hour, and it still is going to keep that exact same top speed, guys, doing around 298 to 300 miles per hour, similar to the other Alpha GP cars in the game, which is kind of interesting due to the fact that many of the vehicles in this class now actually do around 300. I really do feel like it's going to come down to which car you guys really like the most, and or which one is probably going to have the best handling and or characteristics to it. I still feel like the RB14 is going to be one of the best cars, but even after that, I still like the RB13 because of the looks of this vehicle, and also driving this thing in first-person mode is going to be an absolute blast as well. But when racing the RB13, I decided to jump into one of the US Speed Tour events and really see how this car is going to do in there and see how it's going to handle in the way that it can actually hold its speed. So I would say it's going to be one of the better cars in this class for that. And luckily with a Nitrochemist set, guys, these cars get to 300 so dang fast. It's honestly kind of insane how easy they can hold their speed. I would say one of the hardest parts about these cars is probably getting the right gears if you guys are in manual. I was finding myself shifting these very often, also trying to find the right gears around corners, and being able to fly out of those corners at the right speed and or as fast as possible. I do think that's going to be a bit of a challenge to do so with these cars, but I would say the more you guys probably run these vehicles on different events like the US Speed Tour races and or jumping into some of the regular tracks as well, I think it's going to get much easier in that aspect. And luckily with the new handling model on these cars, I really do think they're going to be much easier to use and also a lot more fun as well. So we're probably going to start seeing a bigger variety in these races. I also noticed this in that recent summit where we had to use an Alpha GP vehicle of our choice on one of the new US Speed Tour races in the city. I was noticing the variety of vehicles being used was honestly pretty awesome. I saw the RB13, the RB14, the Mark X, the Mark II, and I really do think, guys, if a lot of the other classes had this exact same update, I have a feeling the exact same thing would also happen in those classes. Like, we would probably see a lot of different cars being used, and I really do feel like a lot of people are really wanting this to happen as well. So seeing all the Alpha GP cars actually get updated and handle much better is always going to be awesome to see. What's kind of interesting though is I really never saw anybody use most of these cars, including the RB13, which I know back in the day a lot of people love this vehicle. I also saw many people talking about this car saying they really want this car to get the handling update too. So I'm really glad Ubisoft actually listened in that aspect and did it to this vehicle. This was definitely one of my favorite cars to use back in the day just to race around. I also use the F1 cars pretty often on many of the slaloms and or the escapes as well. So I will definitely be trying out the RB13 on those in the future. And luckily, guys, we're going to have other vehicles now we can also run to actually test out. So I know a lot of people really did want to try out the RB13 before, but Before with the RB14 being like the only car that was actually updated, basically everybody was using that vehicle, and even to this day I would say most people are still going to use the RB14 because my goodness guys, that thing is insanely good, and technically I also do believe it's an upgraded version of the RB13 as well, so you really can't go wrong with either vehicle. But if you do want to drive in first person mode, I really do find the RB13 to be so much dang fun to use, and I really do wish we can actually mix up some of the races with these. I really do want to use an Alpha GP car, like being able to do the long New York race and or like something like the Detroit Hyper race as well. I feel like this would be so much fun when being able to use one of these vehicles and actually getting parts and or followers and money doing it. I really wish they would actually add that feature in. Now, I wouldn't say every single race has to be mixed, because honestly that probably wouldn't make a lot of sense, but at least let me use my Alpha GP vehicle in the long hyper races and still make the same money and or get parts that way. I think that would be so much fun. But besides all that guys, let me know your thoughts on the RB13 in the comments below. I really do feel like this is going to be a lot of players' favorite F1 car, and I will most likely be using this one almost most of the time going forward. And here are the settings I'm currently running on this car.